Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Thank you, by the way, for coming on to the podcast today.
Absolutely. This is going to be so much fun.
We strive to hit one of three categories at a minimum on every episode. One is we are going to talk about the optimization of our practice. So we're going to learn a little bit about what it is you do in a category of insurance or insurances that you and your firm represent, which is the more, direct part of our conversation today. But the other part of it is learning from another optimized advisor. And I like to play with that category in the sense that use a good friend that we know, Andrew, who's here in a very successful and I would say meaningful wealth advisor. He, by definition of the word, is what we would classify as an optimized advisor. But also, I like to play with that in the sense that any entrepreneur who has formed and successfully developing a business, to me, is also an optimized advisor. So,
that makes sense, especially when you think about becoming optimized. What does it take to look like that, and then maintain it or continue to, like you said, grow in that capacity?
And it's a never-ending game. I don't think, in my mindset, we're never fully optimized.
No,
but we're always striving towards what that would look like. And the cheese is always moving, right? There's things that are always being thrown at us that force us on our heels or make us pivot as a company.
And the vision grows. So I always start with, what is the vision for my company going to look like? And in 90 days, it's easier to project the next 90 days. And then a year, then 3, then 5, then 10. 10 years, who knows? You could just say something now to work towards that, to give you and your staff hope. But the reality is, like you said, the cheese is moving. I think the vision unfolds the closer we get to it. And so it's not necessarily linear how we get there, but it certainly becomes bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. So let's pause there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, what it is that you actually do, instead of us talking around it, and then we can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, my name is Sean Turner, and I own an insurance agency called Buffer Insurance in Dallas-Fort Worth, and we focus primarily on health and life, even though this year we are launching into property and casualty, so home and auto. So we're becoming a full-service agency on our way to become optimized.
That's right. I love that. Okay, good. And the name of your firm, Buffer Insurance?
Buffer Insurance, yeah.
From the get-go?
That was from the get-go. Okay. Now, what's crazy is trying to figure out a name that the domain name hasn't always been taken. So it's like www.xyz insurance. Mm-hmm. How do you find that one that hasn't been taken? And I knew that my agency was going to be bigger than me. I knew that we were going to have more staff than just me. And so I didn't want to name it Sean Turner Insurance Agency, mm-hmm. because I felt like as we grew, other people working weren't going to be named Sean Turner. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't want to necessarily, would want a name of a company that they could represent that wasn't just someone else.
A symbol beyond you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the, if you can, just a brief description of kind of the state of health insurance first, and then let's dive a little deeper into the life insurance category.
Yeah, health insurance is one of those things that's always going up. And so we work primarily with employers and seniors. And so we're doing Medicare as well as employer benefits. But there's some big things happening in the employer benefits space. And one of that is that for the small groups, and small group would be any employer under 50 employees, mm-hmm. is there's a lot of shifts happening with carriers. And one of the biggest shifts right now is the fact that Blue Cross Blue Shield in Texas is kind of king in that small group space. But one of the I guess features of their products is that you don't have to answer health questions to get onto their product. So I literally had a guy, hey Sean, I have 5 employees. I have cancer. I don't have any insurance. Can I get something? And the answer is yes, you can. Jump on Blue Cross. The price is what it is. It's just set. And
Interesting.
the new carriers that are coming into the market with new products say, hey, we're going to have you fill out a health questionnaire, assess your risk, and then price it based on that instead. And so there's a mass exodus of the groups that Blue Cross had that was on lockdown that are now exiting, and the price of Blue Cross is going up exponentially because the people left on their product are sick. Mm-hmm. All the healthy people are going to these other products called level funded products where the price is based on the risk of the group rather than just a set overall class.
Okay, so level funded means, so I have a small company, let's say 10 employees. The companies underwrite the entire group and categorize the group as a class. So I don't know, A, B, C, D.
Yeah, that's a simplified version of it. There's a lot, and I won't go into the details because those don't matter. But the reality is, like, I'll take us for example. We have 9 employees now. I went to Blue Cross to just look at the price to see what a $3,000 PPO plan might cost us, and our group is late 20s, mid 30s primarily, and it was about $770 per employee for a $3,000 PPO plan. I'm like, wow, that's really expensive. This 27-year-old, can they pay $770 a month on that? Mm-hmm. We looked at a level funded plan, which is assessing the risk of our group. It went down to $330 per employee per month.
Really?
And so there's a massive savings there for those groups who can make it happen, who do have low risk or moderately low risk to exit off of what was the foundation, these what we call fully insured plans.
Wow.
And so the state of healthcare is changing because of those new features and those new plans being available. There's a big shift happening to where some people are going to save a lot of money, and the others who are stuck because they're sick, they can't move, are going to end up paying a lot more. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, now a question, state by state. You predominantly operate in Texas, and then does what you just said apply to how many other states?
Yeah, they actually have level funded plans in all 50 states.
They do. Okay, so, even California.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although California's a little crazy.
It is.
California and New York.
That's why I ask. Yeah, of course. Like in our space, it's my interpretation. Like New York just doesn't even want annuities or life insurance being written. They make it so challenging to do business in those states. It's
well, a lot of states are, especially on the coast. New York has this, Washington has this, and several other states where they're mandating you have to have certain coverages. And so New York might say you have to have short-term disability. And so every employer is now forced to, whether they can afford it or not, to offer their employees these mandated benefits.
So let's talk a little bit about technology. I know that when you and I met at the workshop, and we met through you being asked to be on stage and tell your story a little bit, which I want to unpack a little bit of that. But from a technology standpoint, you were very deliberate and intentional in, we need to build the proper interface and have a meaningful brand. But if you can just talk a little bit to that intentional decision that you made and the process that you've gone through to get where you're at today.
Yeah. So I started in 2018 just out of my house. Didn't know hardly anything about insurance. Barely had my license like 8 months. And so I knew at the time that I had just read a book called Art of War, and it has nothing to do with business, but also has everything to do with business. And one of the statements that really stood out to me was, when you're small, look big, and when you're big, look small. And so I was like, you know what? I'm so small. I'm competing with these companies who have hundreds, if not thousands of employees nationally. How do I look like one of them so that I can compete with them, so that people won't just discount me? So I went in on a granular level. I was, all right, my phone system, I need to have something that when they call in and I can't answer it, it says, press 1 for this department, press 2 for this department. And they all come to me.
Right.
And so something as simple as that versus also...
Which costs, relatively nothing, right?
$25
You already have
a
to have
month.
a phone system.
Yeah. And then what it did set me up for success, though, because instead of handing out my cell phone number, I was handing out my dial pad number, or whatever phone number I ended up going with. And now I never answer my phone because I have that phone number routes to my assistant who answers my phone for me. And now I don't have to give out a brand new phone number. I can just give out our company line or my direct, which they all have the ability to set up rules on the back end, right? And so then started to look at CRMs out there, client relationship management systems, and I just didn't really see any that really were that great. Now there's a lot out there now, but this was 2018, and so we were deliberate even back then on finding a CRM that would help us customize policies and client management, even so that we could automate things. And so slowly over the years, we started adding things, but we were...
Can you give me some examples of things that you've automated that have really helped your business?
Yeah, if you have repetitious communications that you do over and over and over again, there's no point in typing out that email. And so what we've done is, one of them is that when a policy gets submitted, let's say, for example, with a senior, they contact us. We have a pre-templated email that has some educational content. We send that to them. It's already pre-written out. And there might be a few things we might modify, but modifying 10 words versus 500 words
Right.
already saved 15 minutes. And then let's say they sign up for a policy. We have an automated email message that sends out to say, your policy's been submitted with X carrier for X product for X start date. And so all that's pre-filled. And then their policy gets approved. We come in there and say, congratulations, you've gotten a policy that's been approved by X carrier for X product, X date. And even those 3 or 4 emails that we've sent out have saved thousands and thousands of hours. Because when you think about it, if it saves 5 minutes in that moment, and you do that moment 1,000 times, especially over a year or 2 or 3,
Right.
it ends up being
Multiplied times every number of sales representative or person that's interfacing in that capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have automations for that type of stuff, as well as follow-up. Like the sale is made in the follow-up. And so if you forget to follow up, and the moment passes and they went with someone else because you didn't follow up. I mean, so we have automations for that as well, so that we don't forget to contact the client if they haven't contacted us.
Okay. What else? Moving on.
Yeah. So
Beyond CRM,
I guess
that's one of the things I talk to a lot of advisors about, and obviously most do. Some of them also have been using the same CRM for decades, and it's so antiquated. It's a challenging conversation because their interpretation is, I have one, so I tick the box, and it works. It works for me. Okay, fair enough. But what could a CRM system do?
Yeah, and that's what the biggest question is. A lot of people say, "Oh, I have a CRM," but all it is a glorified electronic file cabinet.
A Rolodex.
Yeah. And if that's what you view the CRM as, then you're losing out on a lot. Because as soon as you can build, well, let me give you an example. So when a client now goes to our website, they have a specific landing page for that segment of market. They're presented with several different problems that they may encounter, as well as the solutions to those encounters, and then several Google reviews that from our existing clients, and then a form that says, if you want to learn more about this, fill out this form. And as soon as they fill out that first name, last name, email, and click next, they're presented with a larger form. And so if anything, if they stop there, if you have the full form initially, they're gonna be like, this is too much. Versus if you give them a piece of it at a time, they can commit to something small. And just like you don't ask your wife when you first met her, you don't ask her to marry you. If you did that, she'd be like, you're crazy.
Run. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we don't do that to our prospects or our clients. So ask them for something small and give them a piece of something. So we have something we call for our seniors, we do Medicare. We wrote a Medicare book. It's like 36 pages, more like a booklet than anything. But it took a little bit of time, maybe a couple months to write that up. But now there's a digital version. We say, in exchange for your information, you get this valuable asset. And so name and email, people give that out all day. And then the next page, they are presented with several other questions. What's your date of birth? When are you planning to retire? What's your zip code? And so all that information we would need to get a proposal. And so once they fill that out, then they're given this Medicare ebook. And then on the next page, they see are you interested in doing a free Medicare consultation? And so we have Calendly basically built into that so that they can book the appointment right then. And what's nice about all this technology, it's linked to our CRM. So as soon as someone puts their email and name in there, it automatically fills in the CRM. And so all those data points, it used to, and I'll tell you, it hasn't always been that way. It used to just send me a static form to my email to say, Sean, you got a lead, call them.
Got it. Okay. So that information was summarized in the automated email that came to you.
Correct.
But it was not populated into your CRM system or any other technology.
Yeah. Phase one, that may be what all your advisors can do, is just get the static email. And that's a good step.
At least it's generating leads.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The second step is to have the system fill that in for you. And even if the CRM doesn't have an integration, if you have Zapier, some people say it differently, that can act as like a third-party processor for those types of tasks.
Okay, and just for those that don't know, Zapier is what?
Yeah, it's a if then that type software. So you can connect Google Drive with WordPress, with all sorts of different applications, and it basically links the two together to say, if this happens, if this trigger happens, then do this process.
Okay. Are you, to this point, we've talked a lot about the health insurance side of things. Are you similarly replicating that technology and on the life insurance side?
We are.
Is it working?
It is. So I would say the biggest thing on life insurance is people say, "Oh, I'm healthy." You're like, "Oh, okay. How? Let's find out." And then they give you 15 prescriptions. You're like, your idea of health is different than what.
Especially when you unpack why the legal description of why a person would be taking a certain medication.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because people underscore or really don't invest the time to understand what the medication is that they're taking, or, you know, the medical reasoning for why, and it leaves a lot of questions because I think people just kind of undermine the severity of their certain health conditions.
No, I think you're right. But I think when you're optimizing your website or optimizing your processes, at first I had incorrect thinking, and someone helped me walk through this. I was so bent on wanting to optimize the forms on the websites and all these things so that they would work operationally really easy for our team, when in fact that was lower priority. The higher priority that I was missing on, that I was kind of afraid to tackle, was the marketing aspect. And so there's no point in optimizing something if you only get one form submission on that website a month.
That's exactly right. Okay, so have you figured that out?
Yeah, just get on national television and.
Have you done that? No.
Yeah, I've actually been on. So last summer when we went
Oh yes,
viral,
that's right. Okay, share the story. Yeah, that's what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
you got to tell the story.
it's kind of like when a roofer says, "I need a marketing plan," and then God sends a rainstorm or hailstorm. It's like, okay, that's my marketing plan.
That's it.
Yeah. No, so last summer it was during the month of June. Roe v. Wade was overturned.
That's right.
And so there were several different, I guess, media narratives at the time that kind of were cycling through. And at the time, it was, at least when I picked it up, I had just come back from vacation, and the overturn, like, this is awesome. No one's even talking, like, no one's celebrating this. Like, this is so great.
Right.
But large corporations were saying, we're going to continue to make it easy for our employees to get rid of their babies.
Right.
And so they were providing out-of-state travel expense. Hey, we'll pay you $4,000.
$5,000. Yeah.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Go to Colorado, have abortion, come back on Monday. We'll see you. And I was telling my wife, Lauren, I was like, do you remember when we had our firstborn, Zoe, she's 8 now, but I said, do you remember we paid cash for her? We didn't have any insurance. And then I was back to work within 48 hours. And she's like, yeah, that sucked. Like, that wasn't fun. I was like,
That wasn't part of the plan.
instead of making it easy for employees to get rid of their babies, why don't we make it easy for them to just have the baby? And so we came up with an amount we wanted to help our own employees, and we only had 5 at the time, but they're all in their 20s and 30s, just married or kind of in their baby making years. And I said, why don't we pay for the medical costs associated with the birth of their babies? Why don't we give maternity and paternity leave? And then why don't we also, for those families who want to grow through adoption or maybe can't have kids, we'll pay for the medical costs associated with an adoption. And so we put that package together for ourselves. And then because we work with employers, it just made sense. Why don't we tell our employers how to do this? For example, we put in this this PDF package. A lot of small business owners don't know that short-term disability covers maternity leave for their female employees. So to pay 60% of their salary for 12 weeks. Most people don't know that. And so we showed them how to do it. We put a post online on Facebook. And next thing you know it, the Daily Wire was writing an article about us. And I was like, this is fake. This can't be real. This is one of those spoof websites someone sent me. And then the next day.
Oh, because someone texts you like who or emailed you, look who.
Yeah, someone wrote this
Look
article
who's on the
about you.
news on the Daily Wire.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't real. I didn't even believe them. Because on our Facebook, when we post stuff, we get 20 Facebook likes, or we used to. And it was like my mom, our 5 employees, and maybe their cousins or something.
Right,
like that.
right. Some random, yeah.
And so
5 friends.
Yeah. Next thing you know it, fast forward, I had done 75 video or conference type interviews with Fox News.
75.
Yeah, with
The whole country,
Newsmax.
all over the country.
Everyone except like CNN. But basically, what I learned at that point was that what's happening now is that there's a values-based economy that's being started. And so people are learning that you can vote at the ballot box sometimes twice, 3 times a year, depending on where you live. But you can also vote with your money every single day. And so now we get people all the time. Still, even that was almost a year ago. We have people calling us, hey, we saw that you're on this list for these people of companies of values that I share. And I want to do business with you just because I know that you share my values.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I called you after that to tell you my story. And about a week before, which this is another example of just the Lord working in mysterious ways. The week before, I was chatting with, Nick and my wife, and watching some headline about, and I was getting emails from many corporate companies of their disdain and opposition for the decision that was made. And on the surface, fine and good. To me, that's what makes a democracy go round.
Absolutely.
Some decisions go your way, some decisions don't go your way. And it's okay to express your frustration and disappointment in how certain things turn out. Fine and good. And even to the point of, to their end of saying, we're going to support XYZ decision. Well, to not then subsequently or consequently also support an individual's choice to have life is some completely short-sighted. If you're allocating $5,000 as the number for one decision, why not allocate the decision subsequently on the other side of the coin? It's still $5,000 as an allocation, but none of them were doing that. And my part of the story is, as an adopted child, where my experience was incredible, and my mother was my adopted mother. I never knew my parents. That was something where I told them, I said, I'm really upset about this, because not giving a mother a choice and support their decision to have a child was completely wrong, in my opinion. And you and I probably get blasted for this, but that's okay.
Well, we did get blasted. So when we put that out there, and we just put it out there that, hey, if you want to support life, this is what we're doing. You can do it too. Let's show you. And our intention was never as a marketing ploy. It was simply, we want to activate other employers to do what we're doing. And so we've had thousands of employers call and say, hey, Sean, many that 400, 500, 1,000 employees. Yeah, we want to do that. How we do that. And so many of them have been activated to do that. And so
okay, how do they do that?
So it's a combination of a health reimbursement arrangement, short-term disability, and then just setting the expectations. And so,
do you have an idea of a general cost
of the birth of a baby?
No, of what this costs the business to provide these supports.
Almost nothing. Yeah, it really is, because it's one of those things that if you just put it in place, someone doesn't have babies after age 40, so. We could have been an attorney, a law firm.
Okay, I have to do that.
Yeah.
So post this.
I'll tell you how to do it afterwards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, all this to say, we went viral on, like, not expecting it, and we didn't have the ability or the team to support the amount of feedback that we got. It was amazing.
Because pre this event happening, what did this team look like?
We had 5 employees, and we were stressed when this happened because we had thousands and thousands and thousands of people reach out online. We at one point had to turn off our phone system because our voicemail box was full. It just was chaos. When we turned it back on, though, we did have, and when you stand for your values, you're gonna have people that, like you said, disagree with your values, and so that's okay to express that, but at the same time, you probably would never be someone to call a company up, cuss them out, and call them fascists.
You had that too.
And tell them to go to hell. Yeah. Well, we had plenty of that.
Wow.
But what was neat about this was that I learned God is a God of order. And so it felt like catching water with a net. So that was a huge catalyst for us to upgrade our processes even more. So now we're much more scalable. Part of it is that we do have additional staff that can help carry the load. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great event. But if anyone is listening to this and wants to figure out what it looks like, I would say start having conversations about defining what your values are. You don't have to fight every battle. Just let people know what your values are. Mm-hmm. And then put your money where your mouth is and start putting that out. And so what's wild is last summer when we announced that we were going to pay for our employees' children, like the birth of their children, none of them had kids yet. My wife and I were the only ones. And so 6 weeks after we announced that,
they all got pregnant.
one of them actually found out they were pregnant a week. They got pregnant 2 weeks before that announcement. And so we just their babies due any day. We've just paid that out.
Okay.
First time. So
Wonderful.
That was super exciting.
Okay. So that's in real life now.
Yeah.
It's actually happening.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you a question about scaling. What insights can you share as it relates to a small business and making those decisions to scale, how to scale, deploying capital, and the weight that it puts on you?
Yeah, I remember the very first employee I hired was about a year after I started. And what the catalyst for it was I was dropping balls. I had so much stuff going on. It was nice. My income
You couldn't
was
do it
rising.
all?
Yeah, yeah. I wish I could clone myself. There's a movie actually called Multiplicity where he clones himself, but each time he does it, it gets dumber.
Right.
But the income was
Oh,
rising.
every time he multiplies himself, it's a lesser version of himself intellectually?
Well, he multiplies him, he clones himself,
Yeah.
and then he goes, and then his clone has this amazing idea to clone himself. And so each time the clone clones himself, it gets like a
More dumb.
yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great.
It's like one of the classic '90s movies.
Okay. That's fantastic. Okay, I digress. Go ahead.
No, but when it comes to scaling, I remember hiring my first employee, and it
You're
seems like
dropping balls.
every precipice, like you're on that precipice of like taking the next step, and you're like, I can't afford this. Like this is crazy. But then as soon as you pull the trigger, you're like, why didn't I do this 6 months ago?
So validation first question is you probably should have hired somebody long before you actually did.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Or at least outsource something. And at that time, I found out more about myself too. Like I love sales. I love pursuing people. I love pursuing relationships. Mm-hmm. I hate doing the behind the scenes, like monotonous account management.
Right.
It's not that I don't like our clients. It's just doing the weeds and the details is very difficult. So I figured out how to hire someone, and I got lucky with my first employee. She's phenomenal. Shelly, if you're listening to this, I love you.
Yeah.
But having her take that off my plate was like a huge step.
Yeah.
And our business doubled again that.
So she complimented you in a big way and covered and filled a lot of the gaps that you were exposing.
Yeah, especially when it came to paperwork and details and renewing, keep maintaining that client relationship.
How well did you know those gaps at the time as opposed to post her hitting her stride and saying, oh my gosh, I've now gained significantly more clarity as it relates to where I'm good and where I'm probably not so adequate?
I got lucky with her to where she complimented me perfectly. But since then, I've tried to do that a couple more times, and I've had failures.
Okay.
But part of that is that you want to run those employees or those candidates through like a personality assessment. The one I like is called DISC. Another one that's really good is called predictive index.
Okay.
And if you can figure out, and they basically have a 97% validation rate. So meaning someone takes this assessment, especially predictive index, takes like 7 minutes. They take that assessment and you'll know exactly what their personality is. Whereas I found that a lot of salespeople are really good at selling themselves to you that they're going to fit this account management role. And you know that without those tests, you would think they're great.
Right, because you're taking them at their word, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even know any better. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt for a moment.
What I've learned from doing enough interviews with people is that most people have no idea what they're going to be good at in life. They're floundering. They're trying to figure out what they would be good at. And that's why a lot of our seniors, they're like, I've worked at this job for 30 years. I can't wait to retire. And then they have a stroke and they retire, have a stroke, and then they just hate their whole lives. It's because they didn't spend the time to figure out what they were good at.
Yeah, absolutely true. Okay, so you're nine now, right? A team of 9.
9 employees. And I will say this is some of our secret sauce. We do have employees here in the States, and we also have employees who are remote internationally.
How did that idea come to formation?
It just kind of fell in my lap. I don't know. I don't even know. I can't even point to one thing. But essentially what I learned is that the job market in every other country is totally different than the U.S. But for example, if you identify in India or South America or the Philippines is easy. So they business process outsource, BPO is now I know the term they call that. But a decent employee in the Philippines gets paid about $500 a month, $600 a month. And that's like really good. Like they would love to work for. And so the Philippines has an economy where it's like 80% of the people there work for a US based company. And so some of those are like batch process jobs where they're data entry and they can kind of keep their own hours. Some of our international employees, we actually make them keep our hours. So sometimes it's nights, sometimes there's overlapping because they're a different part of the globe. But to hire someone who's on the back end doing process management and they work 40 hours a week and you pay them what seems like
$500 a month,
nothing to us, but is extremely meaningful to them, can really be a game changer for the profitability of your company.
Wow. So how would you I presume that then you have one that is better than adequate, a relationship or a staff there. What was the process to find the right one?
Yeah, I'll give an example. Like there's a website called onlinejobs.ph, and that's a job board for specifically the Philippines.
Okay.
And I would say there's other ones for other parts of the country, like South America and India and such. And so some people might have a desire to hire a certain place. They all have their pros and cons. So for example, in Philippines, it rains a lot there. And so if someone's not in the city, in like Manila or one of the big cities, their internet might be spotty, and you can't necessarily count that against them because it's just the infrastructure of the country.
Right.
But when we were going through the hiring process, I was like, you know what? If we hire the wrong person, what do we lose? $500?
Yeah, the collateral damage is minimal.
It's so low. But the very first thing we did was we set up an English proficiency test, and we had on this job, we posted it within 4 hours. We had 50 applicants. So I'm like, how do we figure out? Like, this is crazy.
Wow.
And so we did an English proficiency test, just had them run through that, took the top 5, interviewed them, took them through the DISC analysis. And then I would say that if you're going to hire...
And these are doing systems work mostly.
Absolutely. When you hire someone remote like that, you have to have a developed process that they can just plug into. You can't say, hey, go figure it out. That's not part of their culture too. Their culture in the Philippines, especially, it's you have to understand this. It's very Catholic oriented, so they're very religious people, but they're also very submissive and passive people. And so they would love to please you, but you have to tell them how to please you. So it's, hey, do this process. When this client does this, do this. And so our employees who work internationally, we actually do meetings with them weekly, and they're part of our team.
Wow.
They're not. We don't just.
That's great.
View them as a number or a task master, but they're part of our team. Yeah,
I love that. Okay, let's go back to life insurance. I want to talk a little bit about that. What are you doing? What are you seeing in the life insurance marketplace, and what are you guys using? It's technology based, so heavy technology, right? You're driving, you're doing marketing online, I presume, driving people to your website or a platform. That platform does what?
Yeah, so you can kind of cut it out into three pieces, like the marketing aspect of like getting leads to call in.
Yeah. What are you seeing that's working? What are you doing?
We haven't figured that out as far as like outbound. And so you have outbound and inbound. We get a lot of inbound.
You do.
And
How so?
It's just values based stuff. And so you say, hey, I stand for these values, and all of a sudden people want to do business with you. So we're licensed in 34 states, and we get inquiries every single day just through those landing pages. And so when you do inbound like that, though, it's kind of a mess as to what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. So these people are reaching out to you rather than if your outbound game is really strong, you can target those people and reach out to them in a way that's going to be more targeted towards your ideal client.
Right.
So I would say primarily most of the people that reach out to us, though, it's either they want cheap term, but I think the biggest thing is I want long-term care life insurance. And so figuring out some type of method.
Hybrid.
The hybrid thing is getting out. The word's gotten out. People want that.
And so that type of insurance requires a sales professional.
Yes.
Not whereas to a point, term life can be completely electronic, and that interface could exist without ever actually dialoguing with an insurance agent. Correct. So how are you handling the interface of inbound leads procured? It's defined and identified that this person is interested in something insurance, life insurance, but more than term. What does that funnel then look like?
Yeah. So I wish I had I have a guy named Cody on our team who does primarily all the life insurance.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yeah.
So he can talk through that a little bit, but
yeah.
Okay.
I taught him, but then the master pretty much he exceeded me.
Oh, he did. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a good leader.
Yeah.
That's my only hope is Nick kicks my butt as it relates to annuities and life and the knowledge, and he's getting pretty close.
Yeah. But I would say when it comes to qualifying those prospects, if you can get those underwriting type questions up front,
right,
and let them know you're not going to find a product, or that you can, rather than teaching them about what options are out there and then qualifying them. Qualify them up front. That way you're not wasting your time, because a lot of times, especially with long-term care insurance, people aren't going to get it because they already have diabetes. Obviously with life insurance, with long-term care rider, they're less strict on that, but qualifying them from that regard. And then once you have qualified them, then spend the time investing into that sale.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. So let's close or get close closing out. You've talked around values and being a value-driven organization. Enlighten us, please, on Buffer Insurance's values and how that has changed your business.
Yeah, it started with figuring out what our purpose was. So our highest priority is to serve other people.
And that was you moving forward with the overflow process, right?
Yeah, Aaron at AM Agency with Overflow. I was one of their very first clients. And we used to sell based on deductibles and copays and all that like feature-based part. And then he helped me figure out, there's companies out there that are cause-driven. For example, Tom's is one of the way early versions, or Chipotle even. Chipotle is doing that like in food with integrity. People will pay a premium for that. And so we went through, figured out our purpose, which then is kind of twofold. We use it for client facing, but then it really helps us reinforce our own team's employees and stuff like that. Why they're here at our company? What are they doing?
And what is your purpose?
And so we just say we believe that you have a future worth protecting, and so we want to ensure that future impact that you're going to make. And so that looks a little bit different. Like we basically take that's the broad idea, and then we break that down into individual segments of our market. So with our seniors, that looks a little bit different. With our employers, it's more around their vision. And we think that if your vision's worth investing into as an employer, how do we help you and your employees achieve that vision? And so it all started with our purpose. And then we furthered it with more articulating our core values, which is kind of how we were talking about earlier. So we have 5 core values, and then we have an impact statement with each one of those. We have 3 impact statements with each one of those values that defines what success looks like with that core value.
Okay.
And people can find that on our website. It's just bufferedinsurance.com. And then on the About Us page, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see our core values out there. We actually just recorded a video talking about our core values.
Did you?
Yeah. It's not up there yet, but that's how much we believe in our purpose, our values, and then what we're going to stand for. And so
I want to go to your website.
Yeah, so you'll see
beautiful website. I mean, seriously. And you went through this revamp of your website
with Overflow. Yeah.
in part of that process.
Yeah, so they really took, I'm not very good with words, and so they basically took all of the ideas, they asked 1,000 questions, put in all these sticky notes, and then came back a few weeks later with like this sharp presentation with all these. They say, hey, when we heard you say this, this is what we saw. This is the underlying theme. So they revamped everything. And then we basically use that as a platform to build from.
Okay, so your core values would be, I see here our big ideas: inspire, connect, protect.
Scroll all the way down.
Keep going. Okay.
You'll see. So it's like trust.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Excellence. Teamwork. What's your definition of teamwork?
Click on the little drop down. You'll see the impact statement. Yeah.
We put others first and treat them with respect. We value the collective expertise in our team and seek ways to learn from others. We effectively collaborate with others to deliver superior service and outcomes to our customers. I love that. Oh, look at you. Health. These are actually pretty similar.
Yeah, that's why I noticed here is like, are you working through this, or is this something you have? Because I think articulating, because then you take it to the next level is like, we have this. Enron actually had integrity as one of their core values.
Of course they did. It's very fitting.
It's on their wall, but obviously no one was acting it out. And we actually, every 90 days from the date of a hire with an employee, we have a quarterly conversation, and we have a grade that they grade themselves, and their colleagues grade themselves as well. And we call it a people analyzer. And it all has to do around surrounding core values.
Wow. Well, wait. So other employees also grade other employees.
So let's say our senior account manager, Shelly, her team, who are all on the account management team, and then our employer sales rep, all grade Shelly when she goes through this quarterly conversation. And it doesn't take but a few minutes for them to fill it out, but it basically asks them a couple questions and then a plus or minus scale on how Shelly did the last 90 days. And I would say when we go through that, we don't do it on a quarterly basis. I mean, we do it every 90 days, but 90 days from the date of their hire. That way we're not doing a bunch at once. They're all kind of spread out evenly. And it really makes an impact. And it's amazing to hear the feedback and then also give them feedback for how they did the last time. It's kind of like, I liken it to if your dog were to poop on the carpet and then a year later you spray them in the face with water to discipline them, they're going to be like, what the heck was that for?
Yeah, absolutely.
So every 90 days is a great pulse for that.
That's great. I love that. Kudos to you. That's fantastic. Okay. You're married.
I am.
You have kids.
3 kids, 4, 6, and 8.
Okay. 4, 6, and 8. You are in the thick of it, my friend. That's fantastic. Okay. You also have personal interests, I would presume.
Yeah.
Like Sean has things that Sean likes to do for Sean because it's how he stays sane.
Absolutely. Hunting is probably at the top of that.
Okay. Which could be quite of a time-consuming hobby. You also run a business.
Yeah.
What does your week look like? How uniform are you? Any best practices that you can share or tricks that work for you to help balance your life with everything that you've got going on?
I always I view work as infinite, so there's always more work to be done. So I always cut off at 5.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So
that's hard for people to learn.
I love work.
Me
love
too.
It. And so it's very hard, but also I love my kids. And so to say I love my work more than my kids, like that's problematic. That's two things, loves that I have that conflict with each other. And so work's always going to be there. My kids aren't. I only got a couple more years left with them. So cutting off at 5 is like a must. But then my wife, she doesn't work, but she basically has a full-time job, carpooling the kids everywhere, managing our house.
100%.
And so supporting her too is huge. So the things I love now, I don't necessarily get to do as often, but that's okay because
they take a little bit of a backseat,
Yeah.
but you still get to do it, I hope.
It's just I realize that this is a season I'm going through with the kids being so young, and pouring into them is important.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things. So, but I did go on a hunting trip. I was gone for 3 days. My wife was basically like a single mom, taking care of the kids in the house by herself.
You're here to tell the story, though. You survived.
Yeah.
I presume the family survived.
Yeah.
The business survived.
That's one of the fun things to do is to take a week off, step away from work, and you come back, you're like, it didn't burn down.
It didn't burn down. And I think you're energized. I mean, it allows you to decompress. It allows you to do a lot of things that when you're in it, I don't think you have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, because you can work yourself to death, and I've seen people actually do that. And for what?
For what? Yeah, 100%.
Our businesses, no matter what we're doing, it revolves around people, and the impact we make is with people. So it's not about making money, although making money gives you flexibility. It's still about what the impact is you're making in other people.
And if the relationships that I care about most in life, let's be honest, I'm not doing all of this for me, right?
Absolutely.
I'm doing this for the livelihood of those that I care about the most. So there's that element of it. And then if I'm not healthy enough, both physically or mentally, what good am I to anybody? And what good is any of this anyways?
Absolutely. I think when you see people's visions for their future, they're like, hey, what do you want to do when you retire? It's like, oh, vacations and Corvette this and nice car that, nice house. And then you kind of bring it back down to 5 years and 10 years, or 10 and 5 and then 3 and then today. And it's like it always goes back to those important relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had 24 hours to live, you're not caring about the car or the house. It's about your wife, your kids, those relationships that matter.
And feeling good about the rearview mirror. What I have been able to do and accomplish and empower, instill in my journey.
And that's why you see in the establishment of the United States, all of these, like Andrew Carnegie and Ford and all these people who were part of this industrial revolution who made tons of money on railroad or cars or whatever it was. They were ruthless men. They were hard men. But at the end of their lives, they realized, what kind of impact am I making?
Mm-hmm.
And they all became philanthropists at that point. They kind of realized their sins that they had and tried to cover up or make up for it.
Make up for it, yeah.
You don't want to be those guys.
Mm-mm.
You want to walk in your purpose every single day and make an impact on those relationships that are most meaningful to you.
Amen to you. Thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you sharing insights about you, your journey, and how do people find you?
Just
You and or the company.
Yeah, bufferinsurance.com. You can find our company website. And if you're interested in reaching out, just go on the contact us page and I'll get in touch with you.
It's all there, people. It's all there. Incredible website. Bufferinsurance.com.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.